1-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Wagner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Well, a 2-1 pitch. And a drive in the air to deep right field. That ball headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here! Out of here! A game-winning grand slam home run off the bat of Robin Ventura.
And it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
High fly ball to left. Back at the wall, and the captain's going deep to the wall.
Turner drives one to center, chasing Nimmo back to the warning track right at the fence. He made the catch! Oh, wow! The catch of the year from Brandon Nimmo! He took a home run away from Justin Turner! Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Episode number 23, the Say Hello podcast. Welcome, everybody. My name is Casey Lynn. I'm joined by my co-host, former Major League pitcher, Bill Pulsifer, as we are now entering number 23 of our journey to one of the best podcasts Mets baseball and MLB has to offer. I want to thank everybody who's watching us on Say Hello Media on YouTube. If you are, all you got to do, click that subscribe button. Just hit that little bad boy. And if you're listening to us on whatever platform you get on audio, please drop us a like, a comment, follow us. We do appreciate it. Thanks so much to Stephen White behind the glass, so to speak, our producer. And of course, as always, this episode is brought to you by roots-recordings.com. Bill, how are you doing, sir, since the last time we spoke?
All good around here.
All right. Well,
how about yourself? How's Lucy doing? Lucy's good?
Lucy's great. She's a handful, you know, as Pete told me. He called her an adult puppy. So I didn't know what to make of that, but I've had her for almost a month.
It makes sense.
She's like a trained, energetic ball of love.
Awesome. That's beautiful.
So Lucy's doing great. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Glad to hear that.
And how's the cold weather in the Northeast treating you these days?
It's not as bad. Not as bad. We got through that little cold snap. We had a little bit of snow, but it's all gone now, and we're hanging in there in the low to mid 30s. But it's cooling off at night, but not like it was. It's not terrible.
Yeah, you know what? For me, I lived obviously in New York my whole life up until not too long ago. 30s in January, I'll take it all day.
Absolutely.
So, plus, as you know, being in baseball your entire life, and me being a fan or being in baseball too, we're 13, 14, whatever it is, 2 weeks out of spring training, which is, to me, let me know if you agree, the unofficial start of spring or the dead of winter, because now baseball's back. You agree with that?
Yeah, it's definitely like the beginning,
Yep.
The sprout, the flowering, the beginning of spring. We know it's not for another month, but when spring training starts to come around, we're getting close.
Yeah. When I was growing up, living on Long Island, and when back in the day, no social media, but the highlights, the last 5 minutes of the news channel where they'd show the guys, probably saw you at one point, green grass, hot in Port St. Lucie, and we're in our 30-degree weather in New York, and it just made our soul a little bit warmer,
Yeah, it's coming. Spring is coming, and the boys are almost back in town. Exactly.
With this being episode 23, I just want to get your let's see if you're good. Any 23s that come to your mind with Mets that have worn them?
You're killing me. Bernard Gilkey.
Done. That's all I needed.
That's all.
Yeah. I didn't set you up for failure there. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I had one because I played with him, and he was a great guy. And
Gilkey I'm going to just read you some notable ones, but for me, I love Gilkey, so I knew you were going to get him. So I didn't set you up for failure.
No, I knew who number 23 was. Money.
Oh yeah, great walk up song. A couple of 23s in Mets history. This again, just being episode 23 for us on the Say Hello podcast. Tim Bogart, if you remember him.
Oh, Bogey, of course.
Yeah, I put him in there because I figured it was around the same time you were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, Gilkey, 23. I actually had his jersey, authentic. Like they stitched it and everything. I was such a huge fan of his.
Nice.
Pat Mahomes, Senior.
There we go.
Number 23, 2 years with the Mets, 99 and 2000.
Future father of a Hall of Famer, right?
Oh, yeah.
At some point.
Pat Mahomes, or Patrick Mahomes, if you will.
Right.
So, Patrick Mahomes is the father. Wait, I'm getting it. Is it the quarterback for the Chiefs? He's Patrick Mahomes. And then you have Pat Mahomes, the former ball player.
That's it.
So, yeah, he's a future Hall of Famer already.
No doubt about it.
For the Chiefs already.
No doubt about it.
Other names real quick. Julio Franco, who played till he was like 90. Mike Baxter, who saved a no-hitter for Johan, if you remember him crashing into the wall in left field.
Absolutely.
Michael Kadire, a key member of the 2015 World Series
Very good
Mets.
hitter. Very good hitter that year.
Yeah, and, came from the Rockies, or I think he won a batting title.
I believe he did.
Yeah. And a couple, David Peterson and Javier Baez. So there are your 23s in Mets history to wear that number.
Ooh, Baez could be a good answer to one of those questions later on, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Baez was here for 2 months. So, yeah, he's, one of those guys that just wasn't here for that long. So you might be up to something with that.
I lost you there for a second.
That's okay. I think we got you back.
Right?
Yeah, we're all good. So I wanted to go in before we get into our Mets talk on this episode because we do have a lot to talk about, with some moves and non-moves, if you will. But we have an announcement to make. I put it out there on social media. If you're following us on Shay_Hello on Twitter, X, or Shay Hello Media on Instagram, we have a special guest coming on our episode 24 next week. It is. Do you want to announce it, Bill, since you made this happen?
Well, it's none other than the legend, Mr. Doc Gooden will be joining us next week. Lucky enough to get him to come on board, and I am super excited, and I hope everybody is super excited to get to spend a little bit of time with my childhood hero, my childhood idol. This is going to be great.
Yeah, Bill made this happen. They became good friends, and amazing that Bill looked up to him as a pitcher and as a person. And Bill was telling me earlier he could just call him and Doc will pick up. It's pretty cool, and pretty cool for me because we get our first guest, and we were waiting for the right guest, and I don't think you can get bigger than Doc Gooden on a Mets podcast, so to speak. He's the top pitcher. He's getting his name retired or number retired, going to the rafters on Sunday, August 14th, I believe, coming right up. So that's the announcement. It is huge.
April, right? Or
what did I just
you
say?
said August.
I'm sorry. It is April 14th. Yep. And then Strawberry is going September.
He's going later, yeah.
Doc, I beg your pardon, is April 14th is a Sunday.
And I think it's good that they're doing, they have their own day for it as well. I like that. So they can both be celebrated for the greatness and for everything they gave for the organization and for the memories. I think it's outstanding. Yeah.
So that's our announcement. It's our first guest. We wanted to wait for the right one. Can't get better than Doc. So we are excited. Please, again, if you're watching on YouTube, or even if you're not, go to YouTube, type in Shay Hello Media, hit that subscribe button, turn our notifications on. We are recording early next week, February 6th, around there. And if your noties are on, YouTube will tell you when we have that episode ready to go for you, with nobody else and other than the great Doc Gooden, the best curveball I've ever seen in my life. So
the legend.
Super, super exciting.
It is exciting.
So that's next week. As for this week, we got a lot to go through, Mr. Pulsifer. Let's start when we were recording last week, the Hall of Fame voting and or announcement for this year came out. So we couldn't talk about it. We didn't know who was going to be enshrined for this year. Now we do. We know the three that made the Hall of Fame this year. It was Adrian Beltre, first ballot, Joe Mauer, first ballot, Todd Helton, sixth year on the ballot.
Yep.
We'll get into what I want to talk about first, and that's Billy Wagner. But aside from Billy first, what do you think about those three players that are now Hall of Famers?
I think Beltre was a no-brainer for sure. I think it's well-deserved for Todd Helton, regardless of, you want to say Coors Field, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter. This guy was one of the premier hitters of our generation, my generation, era, whatever you want to call it. And Mauer, I'm a little surprised first ballot.
Me too.
Excuse me?
Me too.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised first ballot. I'm not going to begrudge anybody that gets voted into the Hall of Fame. I don't like to begrudge any guy that played. Obviously, a tremendous baseball player. You put his numbers up against some other guys, and it makes you wonder if a guy like, let's say, Keith Hernandez or a guy like Don Mattingly, I think they're right up in there as well. Obviously, he was a catcher for a long time. Not going to say he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but a little surprising first ballot.
Okay. Yeah, I agree on everything you actually just said. Mauer, for me, was on the borderline of, if I had a vote, if I was going to cast it this year, do I think he's a Hall of Famer? Yes. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because year 1 or year 10, no one remembers. So,
well, you know what the crazy, if you think about this, and this is the way I kind of always use my barometer for first year, first ballot guys, is Joe DiMaggio had to wait till his third year on the ballot before he was voted in. Right. So when you see guys being first ballot guys, and I like to try to hold them up to that standard, I don't remember any songs about Joe Mauer, but I do remember Joe DiMaggio. So, like I said, I'm not going to begrudge the guy being a Hall of Famer. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to the other two guys. Just a little surprise first ballot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Congratulations to all three. They joined Jim Leland, who was put on by the Veterans Committee. So it will be 4 that are enshrined.
Well-deserved for Mr. Leland as well.
Absolutely. He was so old school. Couple, definitely one World Series, with the Marlins, and very deserving. So, which leads us to who did not get in this year. Gary Sheffield, we talked about him. Last year of eligibility, 10th year, he dropped, actually. You need 75%. I forget what he had. He didn't make it. So he's done. And what I want to talk to you about, even though Gary Sheffield was a Met, and he hit his 500th home run as a Met and had a great career. He's a Hall of Famer stats-wise.
Tremendous, absolutely.
We all know why maybe he didn't make it. We don't have to go there.
Right.
Billy Wagner. Now, we have discussed Billy Wagner. And actually, all national media was discussing Billy Wagner after the announcement. He missed out on his 9th year. You get 10 years, everybody, by 5 votes. 5. Now, off the top of my head, I think there's a total of like 370 or something around there total votes, and you need 200 whatever to make it 75%. He missed out by 5. And a lot of people who are so-called experts or analysts, they're all like, what in the world? Like, why are we here with Billy Wagner not in the Hall of Fame? I completely agree. He's going to get in next year because if you look at the ballot, it's not a huge, big, like everyone's going to get a check, and a vote. So he'll get in because he only missed by 5. He's been trending every year, and he's a Hall of freaking Famer.
Well, he's going to be the Helton. He'll be the Helton of next year. He'll get in. He's going to get in.
Yeah.
It's a shame that it's taken this long. And I tell you, the information that you sent to me.
Yeah.
That's when you throw those names in there, the Koufax and the Ryans, and then the other guys that the closers, the Jansons. These are guys that are going to be Hall of Famers, or they're already are Hall of Famers. And you see that. What are we waiting for with Billy Wagner? Because those are some heavy names that are, and you should go over those stats a little bit because it's a little mind blowing that we've gotten to this point. Yeah,
I mean, I printed them out. I basically have it memorized because
It is
it's
mesmerizing.
It is yes, that too. But what I can just tell you is that Billy Wagner, the reason that a lot of people are not voting for him, and again, last year he'll get in, right? But it's because of his innings. He's only thrown 900 total innings. Bullshit. I don't care because you know what? In his 900 innings, what I just held up to the camera, everybody, if you're watching or if you're listening, I just held up one of the 5 sheets that I printed it out, but the font's whatever so big. But he has the lowest in Major League Baseball history at the 900 inning level of opponent's batting average against. It's I wrote it down, 187. That's what hitters hit against him in his entire career. And I could go on. You mentioned Rivera and Jansen and Koufax, DeGrom. They're all on this list, and you compare all the numbers that you want, and Billy's just better. And I don't understand why, if Lee Smith can get in, Trevor Hoffman can get in. Obviously, Mariano Rivera is deserving to get in. But Wagner is a Hall of Famer. Again, we don't care in 20 years whether you're 1 or 10. But his numbers have shown, oh my goodness. It's mind-boggling, Bill.
He's statistically one of the hardest. I think Addy Joss was one of the other names too, who was an old guy and one of the hardest guys to hit. He is statistically, if you look at those numbers, one of the, if not the hardest guy to get a hit off of in the history of Major League Baseball. And I think I told this story before, but if not, I'll just quickly. I remember the first time ever sitting in the dugout in the Astrodome and watching him throw in his early career. And he was throwing back in 98, a 98 and a 99 mile an hour fastball with a disappearing, whatever breaking ball you want to call it, slider, curve. It didn't matter. It broke 3.5 feet. And all I could think of is, I don't even know how guys hit a foul ball off of him, let alone get a hit or, because he was just incredible. Just incredible. And it's a shame that he's got to wait another year, but I do believe, and just like you, that he's going to get in there.
Yeah, he's going. You said the Todd Helton route. You're right, but Helton didn't have to wait 10. It's the Larry Walker route. Started off slow. Walker gained every year, got in his 10th year. He's now a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
And we don't care, obviously, even though I remember whether it was year 10 or 1. He's a Hall of Famer. So,
you know what? Somebody made a good point about Helton actually the other day to me, and they said, and was a former player, and they said it didn't matter whether they were playing in Colorado, and I guess Larry Walker would be kind of considered in this as well because he did so much in Colorado. Yeah. It didn't matter whether you were playing against Helton in Colorado or in, let's say, Shea Stadium. He was a tough guy he was one of the guys in their lineup that you're going to want to have to watch out for. It didn't matter where you were playing.
Of course. And a lot of people say, it's the bias that he played his whole career at Coors Field and he tore it up hitting 360 and 340. But he also played very well on the road. His stats obviously weren't as good, but he was a great player on the road. And here's my debate. Todd Helton's a Hall of Famer. Don't get me wrong. So I'm vouching for him. And if people don't like it, which I've seen, I could say this. Well, what do you want the guy to do? He played for the Rockies. It was his job. It happens just to be in Coors Field where they're 5,600 feet or whatever it is above elevation, or sea level, at elevation. Like, he did what he had to do for his job where they put him.
I think you tip your hat to a guy that played for one organization his whole career as well.
Like
there's something to be said for that.
Mauer did that too?
Yep, absolutely. Tip your cap.
Yeah. So moving on, Billy Wagner, Hall of Famer, snubbed again. Let's go into some current Mets news. Since we last talked, Mets made a move. And we asked the Mets last week if they wanted to compete DH and 2 quality relievers. Now, we also really accept the fact that they're not going to get a DH. It's going to be Vientos, Stewart, Marte. So put that aside. We talked about that. I still stand by that. I think you do too.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's kind of set. It looks like.
All right. And
unless
Justin
they're
Turner
really doing that pressure thing of waiting guys out, and then we'll sign you in spring training.
One's off the board. Justin Turner has now signed with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Okay.
So I guess 2 are left of the 3, and it's JD Martinez.
And Martinez, yep.
Yeah, and Turner got like 1 year, I think $13 million, which was actually more than he got last year with the Red Sox. One year, $10 million.
He had a good year.
So did JD Martinez with the Dodgers. So just
well,
one
it's
more.
nice
when
you can hit in a good lineup, right? You got Rafael Devers hitting before you or after you, or you got pick a guy out in L.A. you got a lot to choose from in that lineup.
Oh yeah. And I stand by it, and so do you. Vientos is still your DH. They're going to give him his time to shine.
Give him a shot. We got to find out, right?
Exactly. So we still agree with that. But the Mets did get one of two, and I'm still asking for one. They re-signed Adam Ottavino, who Met fans are very familiar with. Played 2022. Last year was his second year in 23. And he opted out of his player option for this year. And here we are. He signed for less money. Did he, screw himself? Not really, because he opted out of 6.75 and it had deferred money in it. And then he re-signed with the Mets a couple days ago for 4.5. And in real-time money, or present-day money, as they call it, whatever. But I think he screwed himself. The market didn't.
A little bit, it seems.
Yeah.
It does seem a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's $1 million and whatever, and he's got a lot of money as it is. But
I think he'll be all right.
I think so. Plus, I think David Stearns, in the back of his mind, knew that the whole time he had him by the balls because he's been on SNY, MLB Network, more so SNY in the city doing guest panel analysis, which was weird as a current free agent. Yeah. And he's got his kids in New York. He's a New Yorker. He lives in New York. David Stearns knew that he didn't want to leave. So he got him on a lesser contract. Now, I tweeted this out from my main account. I want your thoughts, too, and then I'll shut the hell up. I like the move only because we know what he's capable of. The 2022 Adam Ottavino, who was good. And that had not Robertson. That had Diaz, and a good bullpen, hence the 101 wins. Last year, it wasn't a good bullpen, and he was put into a lot of, whatever situations that he crumbled, and he lost his closer job after they traded Robertson. He's a year older. He's lost mileage on his fastball. He's an automatic. If a batter gets on base, it's a double because he cannot hold a runner on to save his life. You right now,
you're really not allowed to hold runners on anymore, so that doesn't help.
You could steal a base off of him right now.
Oh my God!
I'm not even kidding. So, he comes in, he walks the leadoff hitter. It's a double. It's a runner on second, nobody out. It just is. It's not going to get any easier. He's not going to fine tune his whatever, especially with disengagements. I'm okay with this move if he can. Return to the 22 form. Diaz is back, but here's the catch. If they get one more quality reliever, because Otto alone doesn't make this pen good. It makes it average at best. You get a Wandy Peralta or a Ryan Stanek, which I think they're going to be out of, but a Peralta's there for the taking. Now you have a good bullpen. You got to get it to Diaz. I want your thoughts on the re-signing of Mr. Ottavino. That's my take.
I think you're right on it. Obviously he's a known commodity. He can pitch in different leverage situations this year than he did last year. We've talked about this before. Having Diaz makes the game shorter, and everybody can move down or up or whatever you want to look at it. Don't mind the signing. He's been a good pitcher. Everybody goes through a decline at some point in time. It's a 1-year deal. Some of these other guys we're talking about with the DH, the same thing. Older guys, you're looking for the 1-year deal. You're looking for lightning in a bottle a little bit. He's proven that he can pitch. He's proven that he can pitch in New York. We know that last year wasn't his best year, but last year wasn't the best year for a lot of guys. And it got off to a bad start with injuries before the season even started. So hopefully they can go into the season this year with a little better mindset, positivity without injuries and that. And he can perform and still has something left. I believe he still has something left in the tank. And maybe if he's not pitching in such high leverage situations, he's not going to feel that extra pressure of trying to get those last 3 outs, which are a lot of the times the hardest outs to get in the game.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. And also, like you said, we have Diaz coming back. And so knowing that in the back of your mind just psychologically helps these guys. They didn't have that last year.
Absolutely.
And that's a big thing. which is a perfect segue into what I believe, and I could be wrong, the only quality lefty reliever left on the market. There are still 130 somehow free agents available with 2 weeks to go.
Crazy.
We talked about it. It's crazy. But Wandy Peralta, the Yankee the last 3 years, left-handed. We talked about him last night off the air. He owns left-handed hitters. I told you, I sent you the stats.
Yep.
Let me read it for our listeners. His ERA the last 3 years, lefty again, Yankees. Last 3 years, 283, 272, 295. Respectable.
Absolutely.
What is even more respectable and actually incredible is that opponents are only hitting lefties, I should say, lefties as opponents, 138 a year ago, 155 2 years ago, with a combined OPS, both under 500. That he is basically, if you're a left-handed batter, unhittable. The stats show it, and it's a big sample size. I do think the Mets, even though they have this quote-unquote tight budget, and we won't get into it because it will really just boil my blood, but I think they can afford, I can't believe I'm saying afford with Steve Cohen as the owner, but I think they could get a Wandy Peralta, and tell me if I'm wrong, Bill, you can disagree. I think that makes the bullpen, it's finalized, and above average. What do you think?
I definitely think that he's would be a great addition, but it just seems like everything that we've kind of felt so far this offseason hasn't kind of come to fruition. But I think he would be a great signing. Obviously, being in New York, I get a chance to watch Yankees and Mets games. And he was kind of not just their best lefty. He was, anytime there was a tie game and they were going to that 10th inning with a runner on second base, with a ghost runner, he was out there every single time. And that tells you something about what Aaron Boone and the Yankees thought about him, that they were putting him in these pressure situations because they believed in the guy, whether it be left-handed or right-handed. I think it would be a great signing. Fingers crossed that would, be something that they would try to do. And I do agree that it would solidify the bullpen even more. And you would have then two quality lefties down there. And he's done it in New York. He knows what it's like to play in New York. And I think it would be a good signing for sure.
Yeah, and I do think he falls in that price range where they could get him. We're not going to go into why we're in a price range talk with the richest owner in sports who still has the highest payroll in baseball. But I think it's possible, and I hope it comes to fruition because the Mets, more so, I think, in my opinion, I want to get yours as well. I think a quality, one more Peralta, is more effective for this team and efficient, or whatever word you want to use, greater good than a DH. A quality pen, lefty or righty for Edwin Diaz is more important than, let's say, them getting a Jorge Soler. That's just me. Well, I value the bullpen.
Yeah, if we look back to last year, one of the biggest weaknesses, if not the biggest weakness in the team last year, was the bullpen. So obviously, the more quality arms and the more quality established guys that you can get down there, the better. And with Ottavino, he is an established quality guy, hopefully for a little bit of a bounce back. And Wandy Peralta, obviously, quality guy. The numbers don't lie. And, I agree with you as one of the weaker spots last year being the bullpen.
Yeah, and they're hoping for bounce back years, of course, from a Drew Smith, who was a home run, happy righty and had a horrible year. He had a couple good years.
You know what I see from Drew Smith personally as a pitcher? I see a guy overthrowing, the guy that's trying to throw 97 and 98 miles an hour that doesn't throw it accurately.
Right.
I think if I was a pitching coach, or if I would say, let's try to pitch a little bit more and maybe we pitch in the 92 to 93, 94 mile an hour range and pitch, because his ball does have movement. What I see with him is him overthrowing and throwing, high fastballs at 95, 96 because he can't get it to 98. And those are basically, bad home run balls nowadays, 95 over the middle is not good.
Yeah, if it's straight, it doesn't matter. So we know he's got a good arm, but, you're a former pitcher. You still give out lessons. You know what you're talking about.
I say pitch more. Pitch. Yeah. Don't throw, pitch.
Exactly. So hopefully he has a bounce back year in the Mets. David Stearns, I think his MO is just guys that he's signed. It's right there for the taking. He's hoping for bounce back years. Luis Severino, Adrian Hauser, Drew Smith, who they tendered, all that. Like they're just, it's a lot of ifs. So we'll see if this all comes to fruition because it's a lot to ask.
Yep.
I did write to you yesterday that we were going to talk about this investment that Steve Cohen has with it's the PGA Tour. It's a $3 billion investment with the Bucks owner, Milwaukee Bucks, the Atlanta Falcons owner, Fenway Sports. Scratch it, Bill. Because my point on it was if you have the money to do all this, what's $5 more million to sign a reliever? I'll leave it at that. It boils my blood if we're going to really get into it.
All I have to say to that is 2025. So
Yeah.
I think it's set in stone. 2025, we're going to go out and spend some more money. Money will be off the books, and there's going to be a nice free agent crop out there. So I think that has something to do with it.
That's fine. And so we're not going to go into that as planned. So that will take up a big chunk of what we were going to talk about. So already we're just going to jump into the mailbag and some quick pitches. And we got some good questions this week. So let's first tell our first-time listeners we do this every week. Shay_hello on Twitter and also Shay Hello Pod on Twitter. We send out, if you want to ask a question to Bill or I, send it in. We usually send it out over the weekend. Write your question, ask who you want it to be answered by, and we'll read it right now on air, just like we're about to do. So if you want to do that, you're more than welcome. Bill, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's go with your boy first. NYMGI. Yeah, he asked both of us, for Bill and Casey, if David Stearns wanted to deal Pete Alonso at the deadline, if the Mets were out of it, do either of you believe Steve Cohen, would sign off on it? It's a good question, and I hate the question, but if I read the question again, do I believe Cohen would sign off on it? So look at it that way.
Right.
It's a good question. Do you want to take this one first or me?
I want to hear what you have to say first.
I thought so. Oh man. Oh man.
Yeah. You want me to go?
No.
All right.
There's a lot of ifs in the question. So I'm going to read it, not again, but if Stearns wanted to deal Alonso, if the Mets were out of it at the deadline, there's two ifs there. Do you believe Steve Cohen would sign off on it? First of all, those two ifs have to happen. That means the Mets are out of it, and now David Stearns does want to trade Pete Alonso before he's gonna go to free agency, kind of like Ohtani last year, and the Angels kept him and didn't get anything for him. Now the question: do you, both of us, believe Steve Cohen would sign off on it? No, I personally, and I don't know, but I'm knowing what I know about Steve, and he's thrown a wrench into what we think about Steve with this whole 2024 reset. But I think he knows that Pete Alonso is the fan favorite. He is the star of the team. And trading him at the deadline if they're trading and sellers at the deadline, they're out of it, would be a terrible look.
Yeah.
And if you trade him, what are you getting back for 2 months? Right. And for 2 months of a rental, it's not going to be much, and it would have to be a lot. But David Stearns loves prospects. David Stearns also, I don't know if you know this, doesn't value, for whatever reason, first baseman highly. In his time in Milwaukee, he had a different first baseman every single year. So take that for what it's worth. To answer his question, NYMGI, no, I don't, Steve, knowing his history-loving Mets honoring, knowing how important Steve is to the fan base, and not getting what he's worth, they wouldn't trade him even if the Mets were out of it. That's what I think. Bill?
I would definitely like to believe the same. I would think the only way, it's two different things. The only way that he would sign off on it, Mr. Cohen, would be if the package in return, which I don't believe it would be, because prospects I was a prospect. A lot of people are prospects. If the return was a known commodity of equal value or slightly less value with prospects, quite possibly. The only other way I would think it would possibly happen was if we sat down with Pete and we agreed, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw you the checkbook whatever to re-sign you in the offseason. We're going to give you some more ammunition for when you come back, and we're going to have a gentleman's agreement that you're going to re-sign back as a Met. And I think that would be the only way that they would agree to that. I mean, I'm hoping Stearns doesn't come in here trying to get rid of the face of the franchise. You know, people can say Lindor, this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't matter. Pete is a Met. Lindor became a Met, and there's a difference. I would like to. I mean, you and me have talked about this at length. We'd like to see that he's already signed and it's a done deal. But those are the two situations that I think it would happen. If it was just a blow me away deal, then maybe you have to think about it. But we're thinking about 2025 being our, okay, we're going back for it, really going back for it again. I'd like to say that Pete's going to be part of that going back for it. Or if we had an agreement, hey, listen, we're going to get you some more players when you come back here. We're going to sign you this offseason. But that happening, why haven't they signed him yet? So the chances of that happening are probably a little slim.
I hear what you're saying. And with Scott Boras being his new agent in his walk year, that's tough. We do know he'll go to free agency, as all Boras clients do. But, you know, it's happened before that under the agreement, under the table agreement. Now, I'm not saying it's an agreement, but you're saying this is what we're going to do, and we're going to trade you. We're going to bring back talent, and then we're going to throw you the bag, you know? Yep. Yankees did that. I don't know if it's a handshake agreement under the table, but they traded Aroldis Chapman to the Cubs, got Gleyber Torres back.
Yep.
Cubs won the World Series. Chapman got his ring, and they got Torres, and they signed Chapman right back in the offseason to what that time was a record deal until Diaz beat it $85 million for a closer. I don't think that's going to happen with the Mets and Boras and Pete, but we can hope. But we can also hope that the Mets are in it, so we can forget this question, and they don't have to even think about trading Pete. You know, we just have to accept that Pete is going to go to free agency just like Nimmo and Diaz did. Hopefully, it's, you know, they didn't trade Nimmo at the deadline of 22 because we were in it. You know, this year to be determined if we're in it, and they have to make that decision. But I guess we'll find out. It's a really fascinating question. I hope we don't have to find out, actually.
I agree.
All right. Thank you for the question. Let's move on. Jimmy Lags, for both of us again. Let's keep this short. For Bill and Casey, great show last week again. Always appreciate you reading my questions on air. Do you think DJ Stewart is primed to have a solid year, or was his 6 to 8 weeks last season a fluke? You want to take this one first?
I think he's primed to have a good year. I think that's going to be something that's going to bolster his confidence. You know, he's been kind of one of those guys that hasn't got the real shot to be in there. I think he's going to get a better shot to be in there this year. I think that he probably left the season last year feeling really good about himself. He's probably had a great off season of staying focused. I think he's on a redemption tour as a former number one pick, former first round pick, to show people what he's capable of doing, and I think he's going to get more of an opportunity, and I expect him to play well this year.
I echo your sentiments. I don't think that, let's say, 6 weeks was a fluke. We know his power. I think he's going to get a bigger chance, obviously, this year because they're not signing a DH as of now with 2 left.
Got to make him happy.
Right, exactly. So if you have Vientos as the DH most days, he'll probably he could be in right field if you want to rest Marte. Or
he swings from that left side of the plate. He might be seeing a lot more at bats. It's going to be a battle, but there's a lot more right-handed pitching out there.
But you know this, if Marte's healthy and the contract and the money they're paying him, and obviously he's contributing, they're going to play Marte.
But I'm talking about over Vientos. Vientos has got to show he can hit. Spring training is going to be huge for Vientos. Huge.
Yeah, and Stewart. Yeah, but I get it. I never thought about it. It's a good point. There might be a huge competition of Stewart and Vientos for the DH spot, with Stewart being the lefty, seeing more right-handed pitchers.
Yep.
So to answer the question, I don't think he was a fluke. We see his power, we see his drive and his determination, and now
swing.
Great swing. Not pretty out there in right field, and we'll see him out there in right. But we talked about this. He did make all the plays. It just, again, wasn't pretty. But I don't think it was a fluke, and we might be seeing a lot of them because you're right. It's going to be a big competition with those two. If we go into spring training with those two as the DH possibilities.
Yep.
Time for one more. Theo A at Shays City Pod. He asked for both of us, and I'm going to rephrase this question. I'll read what he wrote, but I didn't. Let's just hear me out, everybody. He wrote, most Mets met. Like forgettable players for both Bill and Casey, my pick is either Nino Espinosa or Jason Giacomi. Giacomi, excuse me. Hakimi. Okay.
I know. I played with Hawk.
Yeah, and I actually remember his name, so he isn't quote unquote forgettable. I butchered the last name.
It is a J, but it is with an H though. So
yeah. I can name 1,000 forgettable Mets. So I'm gonna rephrase the question, and I'm gonna say not forgettable, but how about disappointing? Because I can name 1,000 forgettable Mets off the top of my head. That played 5 games and then left. So I'm going to flip it around and say, in my mind, and you can answer this if you want, who were 2 or 3 players that were their expectations and their track record were really high, and you expected a lot for them, and they just shit the bed. I got 2 off the top of my head. You ready?
I'm ready.
And this is in no particular order. They both just shit the bed. I don't know who shat the most.
Okay.
You're welcome for that picture, everybody.
I love it.
Yeah. Jason Bay. Let's start with him. A couple, 2-time All-Star with the Pirates, Rookie of the Year. Got traded to the Red Sox in 2009. Had an unbelievable year there. Was in the MVP voting. Had like 30 plus or almost 40 home runs. 100 amazing year with the Red Sox in his free agent year, and signed a 4-year, $66 million contract the following season with Omar Minaya, who wanted to make a splash in the new City Field with Jason Bay. Track record says, great, we got a left fielder and a power. Jason Bay got hurt in July of his first year in 2010, concussion, out for the season. Before that, awful. Came back in 2011, healthy, awful. 2012, hurt himself again, awful. His stats altogether, awful. It was coming off of an entire career of all-star MVP caliber play to he turned into one of the biggest busts of a free agent signing you can think of. And for the money, it wasn't that much. I guess back in 14 years ago, it was.
That was a lot of money.
Yeah, it still is. But he of course. But they actually mutually agreed after the 3rd year to terminate the contract. That's how bad it was. And they did. And he went on to play for the Mariners the following year in 2013, sucked there and retired.
Makes you wonder how much that concussion really did to him. How much it might have affected him.
You're right.
Makes you wonder.
And no offense to Jason Bay. He always played hard, and he wasn't a bad guy. But for what he got and what he offered with the Mets, and it wasn't all his fault because those teams were awful, back in those years. But he was that guy, and he just didn't bring it, and that's right there for me. So let's call that disappointing, not forgettable. We don't forget that. My last one, I'll keep it short. I told you off the air, the player. I changed my mind.
Oh, okay.
It's not. I was going to say Jed Lowry,
which I thought was a good one after you sent the stats along.
Because I read the question at face value and it said forgettable players. Well, he signed a 2-year, $20 million contract and had 6 or 7 plate appearances without a hit. That's forgettable, but I'm going with the whole expectations and all that. I think this actually beats Bay. If you want to talk about worst trades or free agent signings, Roberto Alomar to the Mets in 2002, traded from the Indians, coming off of hitting .356 and an OPS around 1,000. Already a Hall of Famer, not old, and coming off a year in which he was an All-Star. He hit .356 for Christ's sake with I'm sure he was top 5 in MVP voting. And the Mets traded basically nothing for him, He came to the Mets. He batted 250 something in his first year. He looked like a shell of himself. He only lasted 2 years with the Mets. He never eclipsed over like 720 OPS or around there. He looked like crap, and the Mets traded him on July 1st in his second year. I forget, I think to the White Sox, and they got Royce Ring. It was just getting rid of Alomar. And I remember when that trade happened, I was excited as hell
Of
because
course.
Roberto Alomar, Hall of
Right,
Famer,
right.
he's still got it. You look at his numbers that he just put up for the Indians at that time, and you're like, hello. But it turned into, oh my God, like he could not hit a beach ball if he knew it was coming. And I don't know if it's a curse of the second base, before it's ended, if you will, recently. But they had the Viagras, they had Jeff Kent, they had, Alomar, and you felt like it was a curse. Those are
Right.
my two most disappointing. Forgettable, I could tell you 10,000. But disappointing, those are my two. So, you got anything to say on that? If you don't, that's fine.
I'm going to refrain from disappointing, forgettable. There's been plenty of words used in the past 5 or so minutes that could be used to describe some other people that might be on this podcast. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone, and I'm not going to disparage anybody that put the uniform on and gave it their best shot.
Yeah, I mean, you could just look at it as like top 10, and there's articles if you want to Google it, the biggest bust free agents trades, and that's history. It's all right there. So
I'm sure you might have even seen my name involved there at some point in time too. So it's all gravy, baby.
Yep. Let's go to my favorite segment of the Say Hello podcast, Quick Pitches. And if you're new to the show, it's 3 questions, maybe 4, depending on if I get Bill. And he doesn't know what's coming. It doesn't have to be baseball related. It's life, it's philosophy, it's whatever it wants to be. He doesn't know the questions, and I just fire away. And without further ado, you ready, Bill?
Bring it on.
All right. It's a two-parter. First question.
Okay.
As a player back in the day, and now as your age, as whatever you are, what are you, 23 now?
Yes.
Yes. Who would you want as your catcher, as being a pitcher? So the two-parter is back in the day, and
Right.
then now, and then like as a fan or looking at over the last 20 years or current catchers.
Okay.
For you.
My second one's probably not going to make a lot of people happy on this podcast. Back in the day, I really enjoyed throwing to Alberto Castillo, and he was he got some backup time in the major leagues, but I threw to him all through my minor league career and made it to the big leagues. A lot of it has to do with Alberto Castillo being my catcher. So
Okay.
I loved throwing to Alberto Castillo. I would love to throw to him today, and his attitude and just the way that he was on the pitcher's side and pumps you up, and I love throwing to him. Nowadays, to be honest with you, probably Real Muto with the Phillies. I like the way that he I don't like the way catchers catch nowadays. We've talked about this in general, and I'm wondering what's going to happen when we go to the automated strike zone if catchers get off their knees again. But I love that he gives a target. I love that he's a big guy. I like the way that he approaches the game. I love that he's a hard-nosed guy. I would like to throw to Real Muto.
Okay, I can see Real Muto, and Alberto Castillo. I know I watched him play. That was right when I became a big Met fan at my age of middle teenager, and he got the walk-off hit on opening day, I believe, in '96, right?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Did he fillet a ground ball through the right side? I believe.
I think it was either up the middle. Up the middle, it was against the Cardinals. Up the middle or right side, I think it was Ray Ordonez's.
Right side. Yeah, I remember middle right side.
I was there, so that's why I remember it.
I'm
12.
I'm surprised he didn't stick around longer in the big leagues. He was not a great hitter.
No.
He was a tremendous receiver and a tremendous thrower in the game, and he put down really, really good fingers. He put down me and him felt like we were on the same page a lot, and he was good, very good. I think he's still involved in coaching, and he belongs. I'm sure he's going to have a super duper long coaching career because you could just tell that the type of knowledge that he had as a baseball player.
He should, and he gave me a great memory back in '96 with that game-winning hit. Moving on. Number 2. In TV or film, movies, TV shows, in your opinion, who is the best villain that is played in a show? Bad guy, bad woman, like villain in the movie or the show. Kind of like a Joker, Batman, or
Christopher Walken's a pretty good bad guy in films.
okay,
think back to True Romance. He's
yeah,
a good villain.
yeah, great actor because he's done comedies and all
Yeah,
that. But
he can do it all. He can do it all.
I could see that. I'm trying to think of the movies. True Romance. Yeah,
he was a mafia guy.
Yeah.
Shoot, I don't even know, man.
I'll give you mine if you. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to hear yours.
If you need some more time to think about it, or Christopher Walken's a great answer because that's fine.
King of New York too.
Yeah.
Right, Frank White.
Absolutely. I'm going to go a little more specific, and I got this tweet blew up because I saw it on Twitter and I answered this exact question. That's where I got the question from. I answered and it blew up from my response, and I didn't expect it. I tweeted it, let it go, and it blew up. Next time I went, to my phone, I wrote Jenny from Forrest Gump.
Oh, that's man. You know what? I know where you're going with that.
And that's why it blew up, because your reaction, it was people's reactions, and then they wrote with it. It's a lot to process with villain Jenny, her childhood, but I look at it, and Forrest Gump is one of my favorite movies of all time. I saw it with
absolutely
right. Saw it with my grandmother when I was like 11. I remember it like it was yesterday. Still watch it.
I don't make it through without tears every single time, man. That's one of my tops for sure.
But for some reason, when I saw that question, Jenny came to mind, and I'll tell you why. Very briefly.
Yeah.
Forrest loved her, childhood, all that. Protected her, was there. She did her thing back in the 60s, 70s. He always loved her, and she left him, did her thing with guys and her, whatever else she stood for. Got into a lot of trouble, and then she got sick. She got diagnosed with AIDS, and then it was like, okay, Forrest, I need you back in my life after X amount of years.
Right.
It's like she used him in a way, and he was so, Forrest Gump in the movie, like not a mean bone in his body, and like she was just poison for him. Now I get he loved her, and took care of her in times in the movie, but it came to my head, and I said Jenny from Forrest Gump. So.
I mean, I definitely see where you're going there, but I guess she had to be the tragic character of the film as well. But I think I've actually seen something about that before, and it was kind of a list of all the things that she had done to Forrest, or not intentionally or intentionally, whatever it may be.
Thank you.
But no, I know what you're talking about. I got you.
Okay. Christopher Walken, Jenny from Forrest Gump. Got it. All right. Third and final question. I don't know if you're going to like this one. I do have a fourth. Let's see your answer.
All right.
In your opinion, is it better to live a ripe old age with little excitement, or lead an adventurous life but a short life? It's a little deeper question.
I mean, they say only the good die young. I mean, that is a song. Oh, man. I mean, obviously, optimal would be to live a exciting, long life. If I had to pick one, am I going out in a blaze of glory? Like your short, exciting life, like it's out of like something crazy happens, and that's how I go, or am I dying? I don't know. I get cancer and I die within a year. Or am I going out doing one of those crazy things that
adventurous? You're going out having fun.
I fall off of a cliff that I'm climbing.
That is adventurous.
I'm going to tell you what. As a youngster, I might have said a crazy life and a short life. As I get a little bit older and I get a little closer, and my mortality starts to kick in a little bit, maybe I think that unamazing or unadventurous or whatever life and living long might be a better route.
Okay. I had a feeling you were going to say that because I've gotten to know you pretty well. The old Bill would say that, the younger Bill, and now the more mature Bill would. So
yeah, if you would ask 21-year-old Bill that, He might have said, "Give me 10 more good hard years of being a flame or whatever," and who cares? But I'm 50 now and been through enough to know that, you know what, it ain't that exciting anyway.
I hear you. Had a feeling you were going to say that. So we'll go to one more quick question and we'll wrap up here.
All right.
I don't know if I've asked you this on Quick Pitches. So if I have, forget it. But I'll ask you the question.
All right.
Would you rather, and this is a known question, I'm sure you've probably even heard it, regardless if I've asked. Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Duck-sized horses, I think. 100? God damn, that's a lot.
It is. One huge or 100 little.
And it's a duck.
Yeah. And they're not vicious, we know ducks.
Oh, you know what, man? 100 of them might be a little bit tough to beat. So maybe I'd have to give it a shot against the horse-sized duck.
Okay, I agree.
You gotta stay away from the beak.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's how they get you.
Yeah.
It's one of those internet questions that it's
maybe if you said 10,
right? No, it's 100. I can't reinvent the question. It's the 100 or the big one.
And horses, I love horses, but they're a little scary. Even if it's a duck-sized horse, 100 of them is quite a few of them to have to try to combat, if you will.
And I said what I said about ducks being nice, but you know what I all meant. The thing, I agree with you. I'd go with the one big one because I would just try to trap it somehow. And if you
only got
rid
one
of it,
angle to have to cover. I'm not.
Yeah, you don't have 90.
A lot of
stuff
going on.
Will it in like you're trying to catch a mouse or something, and then get rid of it. Even though it's huge and it could kill you,
and then just go ham.
Exactly, and then you're done, and you don't have 100 else to worry about.
One way or the other, either win or lose.
Right. Okay. So we went all over. We're under agreement. So Quick Pitches, we went all over the place. To be honest with you, we did exactly. That's why it's my favorite segment. We did TV, film, movie, Playing Days for You. We did philosophical, live life short and fun, or what we talked about, or ducks and horses on their size. So that's what you get with Quick Pitches.
It's a beautiful thing.
And with that being said, that wraps up episode 23 right there.
We did it.
Thank you, Stephen White, behind the glass, our producer, making all this happen. If you didn't hear it, I guess why wouldn't you have heard it? Because this is not live radio. We are going with Doc Gooden as our guest, episode 24 next week. So hit that subscribe button, turn on the noties, follow Shay_hello on Twitter and Shaylo Media on Instagram. We'll keep you updated. Maybe, we'll do some brainstorming and how to make this even more fun. But Doc Gooden on the Shaylo podcast next week, the first week of February, whatever day we debut that episode. Bill, it was always a pleasure. Any final words before we see what's in store for the Mets and Major League Baseball as we head towards spring training?
No, I'm just going to piggyback on you a little bit and say, for all those that are regular listeners, tell your friends, tell your family, you're going to have a legend on our little podcast next week. And the more the merrier to get an in-depth, close look, close hear of one of the greats. You don't get to see a unicorn all that often. And Doc Gooden is a unicorn, and I look forward. But tell your friends, hide your kids, hide your wife, whatever it may be. But tell your kids, tell your family, and make sure you're tuned in and ready to watch. Us speak with one of the greats.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I couldn't have said any better. Tell everybody because Doc Gooden, at least in New York, and as a Met fan and a Yankee fan, household name. So he'll be on the show as a guest. We will, and I did say this earlier, and it bears repeating, we will read a couple questions from fans, and I already put it out at Shay_hello on Twitter and Instagram on Shaylo Media. They're not going to read all, so make them good and clean. But we will read your questions to the legend, Doc Gooden. So hit that subscribe button, follow Shay_hello, Shay_hello, and Shaylo Media on Instagram. Doc Gooden next episode, and we will have fans being able to obviously listen to him next week and also throw your questions in starting right now. Look for it as the Anshe_hello. Great job by Bill getting the legend in, and I'm interested to see what happens in maybe that one final spot for the Mets before we talk again.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for listening and watching. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you, Steve. As always, this episode is brought to you by roots-recordings.com. I want to wish everybody a great rest of their day wherever you may be. Please stay safe, and we will talk to you next week on the Say Hello podcast.